All right. Okay.
I just have a question.
Yes.
If we're using the olive oil, are we still using 70 grams?
You're going to use 1/4 a cup.
A quarter cup?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
All right.
And the flour is just all purpose, or is it
You
zero
can use
zero?
all-purpose flour. That's fine. That's totally
Okay. Okay, thanks.
fine. All right. Okay, guys. So everyone, thank you for being here. I'm gonna give 3 more minutes. Okay. I know sometimes there's last minute stragglers. They're running behind. Life happens, so we'll wait another 3 minutes, and then we'll begin because it's not fair to you guys to keep you waiting. And I know everyone else has other things to do today on a Saturday. Okay. So 3 more minutes, and then we will start. Okay. While you're waiting, if you want to start measuring out your ingredients, you're more than welcome to start doing that. If you have any questions while you're measuring out your ingredients, you're more than welcome to ask me. That's what I'm here for. During the lesson, I ask that everybody keeps themselves muted so that way, and put it on speaker view so you get a full view of me and what it is that I'm doing. If you have any questions along the way, you can unmute yourself, ask me the question, and then mute yourself again. That way we avoid any bouncing back and forth between speaker view, okay? And my name is Lisata, or Lisa for short, so you can call me Lisata or Lisa. Either or is perfectly fine. Okay. So we just make sure there's no one else in the waiting room. All right. Okay, I'm just gonna make sure no one has messaged me with any issues before we start, because that usually happens. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna start putting this on so it gets hot, because this takes a while. I'll put this here. Okay, so we will begin. Okay, if any last minute stragglers pop in, I'm gonna fill them in as we're doing what we're doing right now. Okay, so today we're making piadina, which is an unleavened flatbread. Okay, very, 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 very ancient bread. Okay, with humble beginnings. It's considered a poor man's bread because there's no yeast in it, and yeast was actually not very common back during that time and was very hard to come across and was actually expensive. So they would find inventive ways to make breads that were yummy and delicious. Okay, which is also why it was traditionally made with pork fat, lard. Okay, specifically from a specific type of pig from the Emilia Romagna region. Okay, it's very tasty and very flavorful, and it helped to give the bread, an otherwise very poor bland bread, a lot of flavor. All right, it's very hard to find that kind of pork lard here, so for that we're using regular tender flake lard, which is a form of pork lard. Or if you're fortunate enough to have a butcher shop that provides fresh pork lard, that is even better. Okay. So for the purpose of this, you will need 500 grams of all-purpose flour or type 00 flour, okay? The 500 grams should be about 3.5 cups if you're using cups. Normally, when you're measuring dry ingredients, it's always best to use a scale like this, a digital scale. That gives you the most accurate measurement and reading, which is very important when you're baking and making breads, okay, if you want to get the best results. Okay, and then on top of that, you're going to need your 70 grams of lard, okay, which converts to about 5 tablespoons of lard, okay, if you're using extra virgin olive oil because you couldn't find the lard, that is a quarter cup, 1/4 a cup of extra virgin olive oil, okay, and then you have your 1.5 teaspoons of salt, okay, regular salt, and 2 1/4 a teaspoon of baking powder, or if you're using baking soda, it would be 1 teaspoon, okay? I like the baking powder over the baking soda because it makes it a little bit more fluffy and light, okay? Whereas the baking powder makes it a little bit more crumbly. So here's the thing with Piadina. There are many forms and recipes of it depending where in the Emilia-Romagna region you are from, okay? This here is the most authentic and the most ancient, all right? There are some that will replace water with warm milk. There are some that will use olive oil instead of lard, although lard is the most ancient form. Depending on the region that you're from, within the Emilia-Romagna region that you are from, the size will vary of the piadina. Some will be very thin and large, and some will be slightly thicker and not as large, okay? But they all have one thing in common, okay? No yeast whatsoever, all right? And you're gonna do it if you have, okay, a crepe pan like this, non-stick would be good. A non-stick skillet, a cast iron pan, okay? They traditionally made these in tiejas, which are very, very shallow terracotta pots, okay? Till this day in lots of parts, if you go to Italy, they will use those, okay? If you see someone using those at the street stands selling piadinas, you know it's good. That's very authentic, all right? So we're gonna start, okay, with the 500 grams of flour, okay? I'm gonna start to work it in my bowl just so I keep my surface here clean. Otherwise, you can put it on your counter, make a mound, and just a small little hole in the middle, okay? I'll make a small little hole here in my bowl with my flour, a well, okay? I'm gonna put in my salt, all right? So that was 1.5 teaspoons of salt and my 2 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder, or if you're using baking soda, that was 1 teaspoon of baking soda, okay? Well, make sure you get it all in there, okay? You don't want to leave anything out. That will kind of change the reaction of the dough, okay? And then
Sorry, can I pause you?
Yes?
The flour, you mentioned grams. How much is it in cups again?
So about 3.5 cups.
3.5, perfect.
Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'm gonna actually mix the flour with the salt and the baking powder to make sure it's well incorporated, okay? So it's evenly distributed, and that way we don't have to worry about when we're kneading the dough if it's all mixed up, okay? And once I've done that, okay, again, make my little well. If I'm going too fast and you need me to slow down or you need me to repeat a step or process, please let me know. I'm mute and I will do that for you, okay? And then we got the lard, okay? So you want to break up your lard into little pieces, okay? I have it broken up into little pieces here. Not sure if you can tell. And I'm going to put that in, okay? Sorry, just make sure that's in. All right, I'm gonna put that in. And then I am going to, with my hands, okay, gently incorporate the lard into the flour, okay? So it gets crumbly with the flour, okay? We want to evenly kind of disperse it and work it in before we add the water, okay? Otherwise, if we were to just dump in the water right now, we would end up with pieces of lard. And then when you heat up the dough on your pan, it would melt, okay? Because lard melts. So we just want to, gently just go like this and work the lard into the flour, all right? Kind of like you were making a pie crust. That's a best resemblance that I can give you for that, okay? And just keep going. And it should look a little flaky, okay? And do it until it's mostly incorporated and you don't have visible lumps of lard, okay? You don't want to have visible lumps, huge lumps of lard, okay? And just keep going, all right? Then once you've done that, okay, and you feel that you've broken up the lard well into the flour and there isn't any visible lumps, nothing too big, it looks crumbly, all right? The same should happen if you're using olive oil, it might be a little bit different, okay? But it will all come together once you add the water, all right? So we're going to slowly, sorry, my guest here moved my camera thing. We're going to slowly add in the water, okay? And mix it a bit, okay? You want to do a bit at a time. Yes. Okay, go, babe. Sorry, that was my son. My husband's
Lisa,
working today. Yes, Alejandra?
how much water are we putting aside? Is it you said as needed?
As needed. So just keep, about, I have here a cup, okay? This is exactly 1 cup that I have in here, and I'm slowly adding it, okay, until I see that it's starting to come together and form a dough, okay?
Okay, should it be warm water, cold water? Does it matter?
You don't want it cold, you want it slightly warm or room temperature, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, so you're gonna keep adding and drizzling it, okay? Until, see, it's starting to look like this. It's starting to get sticky and come together, okay? So keep going. I'm gonna show you again. It should look like that, okay? And the reason why you don't want to dump your water in all at once, okay, is because then if you add too much, it's going to be too wet, and then you have to add more flour, okay? And then you're ruining the ratios, okay? So it's always better to add less, because you can always add if you need, but you can't take away, okay? So that's one of the main important things when it comes to baking, okay? Whether it's making pasta, making bread, making cakes, okay? So now I'm going to use both hands so I can get a better feel, and then I'll move it onto my board to show you, okay, how it should look. Okay, so I can tell. So right now, okay, it looks like this, okay. It looks dry and crumbly. I need a bit more water, okay. Now, depending on your environment, okay, if your place is very dry because it's very warm and you have a fireplace going, you're going to need more water, all right? If you live in a hot environment, you will need more water. If you're living somewhere where it's cold, it's winter right now, you'll need less water than, say, if you were living somewhere tropical, okay? So whenever you get a recipe, if it says exactly 1 cup and you're using it and you find that you needed less or you needed more, it's because of your environment. Okay, so that's why I always tell people whenever you're following a recipe, always go with a little bit less and then add more. Okay. All right, so now this is good. I'm going to put this on my board and show you guys. Okay. So right now, okay, it looks flaky, kind of crumbly, broken apart. That is normal. Okay, we put this here. Okay, once you get to this consistency, you want to start to knead it. Okay, and you want to knead it until it starts to form a smooth, compact ball. Okay, of dough. Okay, you want to get all those little bits out of your hand. Okay, I'll move a little bit more this way so you can see. Okay. And you're just going to knead, okay? So when you knead, you want to push your forearm in forward, go like this, then push it back, and do the same thing again, and then fold it over again and rotate the dough, okay? That's the best way to work your dough, okay? Whether that's a pizza dough, a bread dough, okay? We need to work in the gluten into this, okay? And you're going to keep going, okay? Depending how much arm work and how fast you're doing this, it could be anywhere between 10 to 15 minutes, okay? You could do this in a stand mixer, okay? But if this is your first time ever making this, I always suggest to do it by hand so that you get a feel for the dough, so that you know what it should look like and what it should feel, okay? The best way to learn when making anything for the first time that is dough-based is to always make it by hand, okay? Because your hands have like a memory in them. They'll know, okay, that yeah, that's right, or no, it needs more water, or no, it needs more dry ingredients. If you just dump everything into the stand mixer the first time you're making something, you won't know because you've never felt it, okay? So you need to be able to learn by touch, okay, and feel, and then eventually you'll know by sight the more you do it, okay? So that's why I always tell people your first time, do it by hand, okay? And then once you know and you've become comfortable with the dough and you recognize it and you know its characteristics, then you can start working with a stand mixer, all right? So just keep going. And you can do it with both hands instead of the one hand. Get it going a little bit faster, okay? I'm just going to keep working it, okay? And as you work it, you should feel that it's starting to become a little hard, like some resistance to it, okay? That is normal, okay? That is you working the magic into the dough, building the gluten with that flour, okay? That's a beautiful thing that we're doing right now. Okay, so I'm just gonna keep going. And it's not gonna be perfectly smooth, okay? When I said earlier like a smooth ball, I mean like not lumpy and flaky and falling apart. So you'll see some like little bit of craters or dents. That's fine, okay? But it shouldn't be dry feeling and it shouldn't be crumbly, okay? Should have dents and be a little bumpy but smooth still, okay? And just keep going. So as you see now, the more you work it, it's changing, right? It's starting to get soft. It's starting to get like molding together into a ball, okay? And the heat from your hands is slowly, slightly melting that lard into the flour and dispersing it and melting it gently in there, okay? Which is why we didn't melt the lard with heat, all right? Okay, so I'm happy with the way this is right now, okay? So what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna do a little bit more, and then towards the end, you kind of try to work it into like a ball, okay? Like this, okay? And then once you've gotten it into the ball, okay? So I'm gonna show you what it should look like, okay? It should look like this, okay? So you see cracks and some dents, that's fine, okay? But overall, if you touch it, right, it feels smooth, okay? It doesn't feel dry. It doesn't feel like it's gonna crumble or crack, okay? Then you're gonna get some saran wrap, okay? And you're going to wrap it in saran wrap. I probably should have cut a smaller piece, but hey, that's life. And you're just gonna wrap it, okay? And then once I've wrapped it, what I like to do to make it a little bit easier for later is kind of push down on it and make like a disc, okay? And then you're gonna set it aside, okay? For now, for 15 to 20 minutes we'll leave. Usually an hour is best, okay? Because the gluten will develop even more. The flours from the lard or the olive oil will mingle with the flour and it'll become nice and smooth and more easily workable, okay? But for the purpose of this course, I don't want to have you guys hanging around for an hour, okay? 15-20 minutes is sufficient. I have one that's already made over here, okay? Let me just plug in my thing here and make sure it's ready to go for you guys, okay? So while we're waiting for the dough, your dough to relax, I'm going to show you, okay, what to do when it's ready, okay? And then we'll do it together as well. So this way you can focus exactly on what it is that I'm doing to prepare it. Make some mental notes, jot it down, and you can focus. And then after, when we do it together, you'll know more or less, okay? And you'll have some more confidence as you're doing it, all right? Okay, so here's my dough, okay? So it's like this now, all right? As you can tell, you know, it got softer and smoother, all right? And you can make some nice indentations into it, all right? So out of this, you should be able to get 5 discs, okay? So 5 piadinas, okay? If you want to make them slightly smaller, maybe you can get 6. If you want to make them a little bit bigger, you can get maybe 4 of them, okay? So I'm going to split this. And you know what? I'll do 4 or maybe a little bit smaller. We'll see. Okay. And I just want to keep whatever it is that I'm not using right away, keep it wrapped, okay, so it doesn't dry out, okay? And then I'm going to split this, actually, you know what, into, okay, so let's add a bit of this to this one. All right, so I got 3 out of this, okay? And what I like to do is start off with my hands first, okay, to help make the rolling process easier, okay, to flatten it out, okay? And then you don't want it to stick to your board, okay? So you want to get a little bit of flour, okay? And put it down. Okay, so I got some dough sticking there. Okay. And then you're going to get your rolling pin. Okay, and you're going to roll it, okay? So as I said earlier, it depends, okay, what part of the Emilia-Romagna region you're going to, where you're from, all right? You'll get them as thin as 2 to 3 millimeters and some thick as 6 to 8 millimeters, okay? The thinner it is, the larger it's going to be in diameter, okay? The thicker it is, it's going to be a little less in diameter, okay? So I like mine in between the 3 to 6 range. I don't like it super thin because then I find it's a little more crispy and fragile, okay? I also don't like it super thick, okay? Then once you rolled it out, it should be like this, okay? So I would say that's about a good 12 inches, or maybe I would say 10 inches, okay? And now I'm gonna warm up my pan here. I'm gonna put it on the heat, and I'm gonna let it get really hot, okay? Once it's really hot, then you are going to cook it, okay? Now, before you cook these, you want to get a fork and prick holes, okay? This is to prevent it from bubbling too much, okay? Because we have the baking powder in here, okay? So while I'm waiting for that to warm, I'm gonna just set this aside, okay? And I'm gonna do the next ones. Okay, same thing, you know. Use your hand first to roll it and stretch it out. Okay, into a nice circle. And just turn it around as you're rolling it, okay? Okay. Try and get a perfect circle. Sometimes you might not get a perfect circle. That's when you can use your hand, okay, to manipulate. If you want a perfect circle, you may be OCD like I am. There's nothing wrong with that. Our lives can't be perfect. At least we can make our piadinas look perfect, right? That's what I tell people. Or at least that's what I try to convince myself. Okay. So let me just see, this is getting warm. It's starting to get there, okay? And then again, prick it. Okay. And you can do as many as while you're waiting for your pan to get hot. Okay. Okay, and there you go. So just give me 2 minutes and I'll be right back. I'm sorry guys, I'm just gonna quickly mute myself. I have to go assist my son. I'm very sorry. Okay, sorry about that. My husband had to go to work last minute today, so I'm juggling both mom life and this. So now it's super hot. It's smoky, okay? I'm going to put my piadina on there, okay? And you want to do it about 2 minutes per side, okay? And you can use either a spatula like this to flip it over, a spatula like this, something that's not going to scratch your non-stick pan, okay? So I'm going to lower the heat a little, okay? And as you're doing it, you're gonna see little bubbles starting to form on top, okay? that is the activation of the baking powder, and that's also why we pricked it, because we don't want it to form one big huge air bubble, all right? So that is a very important step, okay? So yeah, that's getting nice and hot, okay? So about 2 minutes per side, okay? Depending on the strength of your stove top. Some stoves are stronger. It might only take a minute, okay? You just want to check and make sure that it's not, burning, okay? You want it to have some slight golden color, okay? But you also want to make sure that it's cooking thoroughly, okay? So as you can
Lisa?
see, yes,
Sorry, I walked away for a minute. Did you poke holes in the dough before you put it in?
that's correct. You have to prick it with a fork, okay?
Okay. And
Or
then did you put any oil or anything on the
no,
pan?
you're not doing that because there's already a lot of lard in the dough, okay?
Okay.
So that's why you're not adding anything to the pan, okay? So now I'm
Okay.
gonna flip it over, okay? See, it's got some slight golden color here. I'm gonna show you guys. I'm gonna lift it off, okay? That's what you want, okay?
And is it at a high heat or medium heat?
This has to be on high heat, okay? But you shouldn't be doing this yet because your dough should be resting for 15 minutes right now.
No, I'm not doing anything. I was
Okay,
listening. Okay.
all right, just making sure, okay? Well, that's going, okay? I'm gonna do this one here for you guys as well. Roll it out. Just keep an eye, make sure it's not burning. Okay, so this way, okay, flip it over. Okay, I'll show you an example here. So there was an air pocket there, okay? I'm gonna take this off. So where the air pocket was, it got more color, right? Because it's touching the surface and this is elevated, okay? So what you can do is just put it back and kind of squish down a little bit to make sure the other areas are getting some color as well, okay? But not like press down where you're, gonna flatten it out. Just, to kind of make sure that it's touching the base, okay? So that you get color everywhere else as well, okay? And if you need to move it around to keep it from burning before it gets color, then you got to do that as well, all right? So I'm just going to use my hands. That's the best way. Okay. And let's flip it over, okay? And then your piadina is done, okay, guys? So a nice yummy piadina like this. And these are best served eaten warm, okay? So when you go to a street stall in Italy, they're going to pop it right off. They're going to fold it like this, okay? And this is what they're going to do. They're going to grab prosciutto. Traditionally, it's prosciutto, okay? So they're going to put in some prosciutto, okay? And put as much prosciutto as you want. And the heat from that piadina, it's going to melt the fat from the prosciutto, which makes it even more yummy, okay? And then you're going to put the arugula on top, okay? Some bocconcini. I have baby bocconcini that I sliced. You can use mozzarella di bufala, okay? And you're going to add some tomatoes. I'm using grape tomatoes that I cut in half. You can use Roma tomatoes, grape tomatoes, and there you go, okay? Very simple on one side, and you fold. And there's your piadina, okay? Yummy, hearty, delicious, filling, okay? And economical, all right? I'm just gonna set that down over there, and I'll do another one here in the pan. I had to move it. You don't want it to get too hot where if you put it down right away, it starts to burn, okay? Does anybody have any questions so far? Any concerns? Anything you're unsure of? Please feel free to ask away.
Lisa, for the flour,
Yes.
can you, like in future, can you also use bread flour, or what's the reason you can't use bread flour?
Okay, so preferably all-purpose or tipo double O, which is known as Manitoba. All-purpose flour in Italy is known as Manitoba flour. So if you can use all-purpose flour, Manitoba flour, or tipo double O. You don't want to use bread flour, okay? Bread flour is heavier and has a way higher protein content in it, and it's made more for leavened breads that are going to use yeast, okay? This is unleavened bread, so you don't want to use a bread flour, all right? Although it is a bread, it's unleavened, okay? So bread flour, I would not suggest for this, okay, guys?
Thank you.
So you're welcome. So if anybody else is wondering, there you go, okay? As you can see, this is very easy to work with. It's an easy dough, okay? Very beautiful. Just, you know, poke, poke, poke. Okay. You can even eat these on its own. You can grab a bowl, put a little bit of olive oil or some balsamic vinegar and dunk it in there, okay? And that's it.
Lisa, sorry, another question, my typical question. Can you freeze the dough, or once it's cooked, is it like the cooked dough as well? Is it bad if you freeze it and warm it up later?
Okay, so because this has lard in it, okay, I do not suggest freezing this dough, okay? This is not, sorry, a dough that I would suggest freezing, only because it has lard, okay? And we all know that when we freeze stuff, it ends up holding water, okay? So when you defrost this, you're gonna have lard, water mixed in with the lard and everything. You don't want that, okay? So this is not something I would suggest freezing, all right? Once it's made, if you want to freeze it, then you can freeze it because it's already made, okay? What I would do is separate them in between sheets of parchment paper and lay them flat in a Ziploc bag and put them in your freezer. And then when you want to enjoy one, you can pop it out and warm it up in your oven. Do not put it in the microwave because it will get soggy and rubbery, all right? So that's my suggestion. A toaster oven, your regular oven, that works best, okay? So if you guys want now, I believe maybe it's been about at least 10-15 minutes. You guys can give it a try with your dough. I'm going based on my dough here, okay? And it's not as tough, all right? That's another indication, okay? I say an hour usually because, like I said, the longer it sits, the more the gluten builds and also relaxes. So the gluten, sorry, that we built starts to relax and it makes it easy to roll out. If you ever try to roll dough that you made right away, you'll notice that it's like, you know, trying to walk against the wind. It's very hard. There's a lot of resistance. It will pull back. That's because that gluten hasn't relaxed in there yet, okay? So that is very important whenever you're making a dough, like pizza dough, bread dough, pasta dough, and this dough here, okay? So that's why I always say that, like, you know, it's ready. Yep, see, another one right here. That you need to let it relax, okay, for that purpose of rolling. So if you get your dough right now and you're able to push it and it doesn't feel hard and it feels more soft, you can start to roll it, okay? So let me know if you're ready to roll, all right? You can unmute yourselves and tell me that you're ready to go. And then we can walk through the process together step by step again. Okay.
Lisa, sorry, last for the dough.
Yes.
Can you ever flavor it if you want to, like add garlic to it or rosemary
Okay,
or anything?
so you don't, traditionally, you don't flavor. If you go to Italy, even to this day, they're not going to flavor, okay? And one, because it's something that's classic, it's perfected, it's considered very holy to them. By doing that, you're messing around with it and they'll take an insult. One. Two, if you're adding pieces of garlic into it, okay, then you have to worry about cooking that garlic inside the dough. You'll be eating raw garlic. And as you can see, it's only staying on here for no more than 4 minutes. That's not enough time to get pieces of garlic inside the dough cooked. Okay. Also, if you're adding garlic, whatever garlic's on the outside part, it probably will get scorched and burnt because this is done on a high heat. So that's not a suggestion. Same thing for the rosemary. You're putting rosemary directly onto high heat. If it's on the outer part of the dough, it's gonna burn. So I don't suggest adding any of that stuff in it. All right. So try to keep it as clean and classic as possible. Okay. There is a reason why things are done a certain way.
Question.
And that's one of them for this.
Do we add any flour when we're rolling out
Yes, so if you find that your doga is slightly sticky, because sometimes that might happen, from the humidity building up and the sweat of the saran wrap, sprinkle a light dusting of flour on your board, all right? So that it doesn't stick.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. And then just turn as you're rolling, okay? You know, like as if you were rolling a pizza dough. And I'm not sure if you guys know, technically you should not be rolling pizza dough with a rolling pin. Pizza dough should be stretched by hand, okay? But the reason why I'm making that reference right now is, you know, if you're rolling a dough, like a pizza dough, which you shouldn't be, but like a crust dough, pie dough, you always turn your dough around while you're doing it, right? Because you don't, it's also a good way to make sure it's not sticking to your surface. Okay. And also to help get, like, you know, a uniform shape going. Okay. And like I said, you guys can roll them. Okay. If you want a little bit thicker, roll it so that it's not as wide. If you want it a little bit thinner, roll it so it's thinner and more wide in diameter. Okay. You can do both to see what you like. Experiment. That's also a very important part in order to know what you prefer. I would suggest trying it both ways. Rolling the dough slightly thicker and shorter in diameter, and rolling it slightly thinner and larger in diameter. Okay. And see what you like. Okay. Because what I like, you might not like, right? Okay. And there's another one done. Okay. So you got some bubbles and air pockets. Okay, guys, see? Beautiful. Okay. And you just keep pouring until you're done. All your dough, okay? So I got 6 out of the one dough that I had pre-made in advance, okay? I made them a little bit thicker and larger. Okay. Doing it like this also makes, like I said, the rolling process easier. Whereas if you were to just get your lump of dough, you'd be here longer, you know. The key is to work smarter, not harder, okay? So anything that you can do to make it your job easier, that's the key, okay? And you can even do it with your hand if you want to, you know, get a perfect circle, okay? The more you do this, the more comfortable you're gonna feel. Before you know it, you'll be a Piadina making expert, okay? And once you've cooked your first one, I suggest trying it while it's warm so you can tell the difference in the taste between when it's first warm, it's more soft, more malleable, compared to once it starts to cool down, right? When you first take it off, it's going to be more soft and malleable because of the lard, right? Lard, when it gets warm, gets soft. As it cools down, the lard again starts to get solid, so it's going to get firm again and harder, right? Okay, so as you can see, I'm just straight out doing this with my hand right now, okay? You want to do it with your hands, do it with your hands. Okay? I'm not worried about burning them. I've burnt them so much that I practically sometimes don't feel anything when I'm cooking, okay? Move that over there. Does anybody have any questions, concerns? Have you already cooked one of them, tried it? How did it come out? Okay. If you want it to be a little adventurous and go a little bit off the beaten path of authenticity here, once it's done, you guys, you know, you can even turn these into like a pizza, okay? You could put some tomato sauce on top, you know, let it cook in the oven for a bit with the tomato sauce, and then sprinkle some freshly grated cheese. Put some, you know, the prosciutto on top of it after, and sprinkle the arugula and eat it that way as well. If you want to try something different, okay, that's something else that you can do if you want. Okay. If you want to, you know, add a little bit of fun to it, do something a little adventurous and cool. That's something that you guys can do as well. Okay, so I got my next one here. So I'm going to have 6 today because I did double the dough. One that I prepared in advance for you guys, so that way you weren't just waiting around forever. Okay. And yep, that one needs to stay just a little more. Okay. Now, if you did it with the olive oil, okay, you're gonna notice that it tastes like, it has like a slight olive oil taste to it. That's also a nice, beautiful taste. So if you guys today use lard, next time you want to try it with the olive oil, try it with the olive oil, and vice versa. If you use the olive oil today, next time you can try it with the lard and see the difference in the taste, the texture. Okay. Broke a little bit. You gotta be just gentle. Sometimes I go too fast, and going too fast, you know, will cause little boo-boos. But you can just mend it using your finger, okay? The residual heat from your hands, okay, will mend it together, the dough with the lard, okay? So that's not a problem. Okay, let me flip this one over. Okay. And that's it, guys. Very simple, right? Did you think this was going to be super difficult? I bet you guys thought this was going to be somewhat difficult. And you're probably shocked to realize that it's not difficult at all. Okay? It just takes some time in the sense to make the dough, to let it rest. And then the rest basically is some, you know, arm work. And then that's it, okay? Very minimal ingredients, clean, simple ingredients, which is a very important part of Italian cooking. We don't, you know, use crazy stuff in the sense that like 30 million different ingredients. Everything's always fresh, always clean. It's very simple. Most of the stuff you have in your home, like, well, if you're traditionally in an Italian home, especially in an old school Italian home, right? So these are all things that you can always make with whatever you have on hand. You don't have lard, use olive oil. We always, if you don't have the baking powder, but you have the baking soda, use the baking soda. We always have flour, we always have salt, we have a stove. And if you don't have prosciutto, you can always use whatever else you have, right? So, you know, you have some salami, you have some capocollo, you have some ricotta cheese, you have mozzarella cheese, you have romaine lettuce, by all means, right? Okay. I want that to have a little bit more color. And that's it, everybody. That's how easy it is. Has anybody tried one yet? Do you like it? Is it delicious? I'm not sure if you've ever tried these before or not.
Really good. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, awesome. Glad to hear. Okay. So, if you guys want to continue making the rest with me, you're more than welcome to continue finishing off the rest of your dough with me. Okay, if you want. If you want to proceed on your own, you're more than welcome to exit and leave and do the rest on your own. You know, I don't want to bore anybody by just watching me rolling. I would like to say to everybody, though, thank you for registering for this lesson, for being here and participating. I hope that you enjoyed as much as I do. I hope that you learned something new. I hope you picked up some new tips and techniques that you might not have otherwise known. And other than that, like I always say, from my kitchen and soul to yours, with lots and lots of love. I hope you guys all have a fantastic Saturday and a great rest of the weekend. And if you have any questions after this, please feel free to message me, send me an email. I'm always here after the lessons, just like a nonna, you know, contact me anytime and I'll be happy to help you guys, okay? So thank you for participating and for being here today.
Can I put, if I don't want to make this all at the same time, can I either leave it out for a few hours or put it in the fridge and make it the rest later?
Okay, so you can leave it out for up to, I would say, an additional hour before it starts to get too soft, okay?
Yeah.
If you're not going to use it within the next hour and you put it in the fridge, I would suggest that you bring it down to room temperature 2 hours before you're going to use it, because the lard will firm up again and then it's going to be very hard to roll out.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for your
You're
time.
welcome. Right. Take care, everybody. Have a great Saturday. Ciao.
Ciao.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Lisa,
Yes.
last question.
Yeah.
Once it's done, I didn't see you assemble it. Did you put all the ingredients on top and eat it like a pizza, where you don't roll it or anything or fold
Okay,
it?
so I'm gonna show you with one that I have here. No, so what you do is you grab it like this, okay? You get whatever you're gonna put on top of it. You know, some prosciutto here. I'm gonna grab some more prosciutto because I like lots of prosciutto on there. You can put as much or as little as you want, okay? Once you've done that, you're gonna throw on your arugula or whatever green that you're using, okay? You're gonna put your cheese, whatever cheese it is that you're using, whether it's bocconcini, mozzarella, ricotta, okay? And then your sliced tomato. So you're just putting it on the one side, and then you're just gonna fold it over, okay?
Does the dough crack when you, like, I already made one and it's not like a bendable dough? Should I
Okay,
have
so
made?
if you see, I'm gonna show you mine, okay? So if you see, right, okay, it should be slightly bendable with maybe like a little bit of a crack over here, okay?
Okay.
All right. So that's why
Okay.
they suggest to work with it while it's still warm, all right? Because as it cools down, right, that lard again is going to start to get solid again. And then you go and fold it, it's going to crack, okay?
Okay.
And that's it, guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye, everyone. Take care.